Hampton Wick is a small station in the borough of Richmond in southwest London. It's a small, usually unstaffed station, basically one step above a halt. It's within walking distance of Teddington and easy walking distance of Kingston, the two stations either side of it on the same line. In fact, it's literally just over the river from Kingston upon Thames. There is, on the whole, not a lot here. There's a high street, but it's not exactly a bustling part of London. So why exactly does Hampton Wick Station even exist? Well, when it was first planned, it wasn't meant to be Hampton Wick Station at all. It all goes back to the 1830s and begins on the other side of the river. Kingston used to be a major market town on the Thames. Well, it still is, I guess, kind of. The point is that when the boom in railway construction was beginning, Kingston was a good place to build a station. In 1831, a company called the London and Southampton Railway intended to do just that. But while there were plenty of people who saw the potential of railways, there were others who viewed them as a fad that would pass if they were opposed vigorously enough. This was the option chosen by the operators of stagecoaches, which were outclassed by the faster, more comfortable, more capacious and safer steam trains. After all, the first mainline railway between Liverpool and Manchester had only opened in 1830. As Kingston was an important coach stop, of course they weren't going to stand for steam trains on their patch. Local landowner Lord Cottenham was also opposed, because the line would have to cross his land. And so the London and Southampton had to reroute their line. They did get a Kingston station in 1838, but while it was called Kingston, it was in the area that we now know as Surbiton, just east of the present Surbiton station. So in theory, Kingston had a station, but in practice not really. And the town began to suffer for it. Before the railways came, Kingston had an advantage over other towns because it could send goods by river. By the 1850s, those other towns were on the growing railway network and no one had time for boats, or stagecoaches for that matter. The London and Southampton, which was now the London and South Western Railway, had reason to worry. Two other railways were interested in joining the game. One was the London and North Western Railway, which didn't really go anywhere near Kingston, and I honestly don't know what they were thinking. The other was the Great Western Railway, and that was the one that really got the London and South Western Railway scared. The GWR and the LSWR were deadly rivals. If the GWR got to Kingston, it was absolutely certain that they would do everything they could to hurt the LSWR. Initially, the GWR put forward a very vague proposal to Parliament to extend their line that ran from Southall to Brentford, over the Thames, through Kew to Richmond, and then probably extend down to Kingston. The LSWR opposed this, and the bill was defeated. Then the GWR came back with a new proposal, a definite route, Brentford to Wimbledon via Kingston. And if the LSWR were worried before, this really put the wind up them. The GWR were not playing around. They were going to keep on trying. There was only one thing for it. Come up with a better line themselves, render the Great Western Plan redundant, and thus block it in Parliament. But they'd have to come up with something pretty sharpish. The LSWR had a line to Windsor, and they quickly drew up a new plan. A branch off that line at Twickenham, which would run to the western side of Kingston Bridge. Here. There would have been no other stations. The bill was approved in 1859. Now, of course, the station was not technically in Kingston. I do wonder whether it would have been called Kingston nonetheless, or whether they would have gone for something less brassy, like Kingston Bridge. But Kingston residents pushed hard for a station in the town centre, which is what the LSWR had always wanted to build, and what, of course, we got. Unfortunately, that station on the west bank of the river was a bit of a Pandora's box thing. The LSWR no longer needed it, but it had been in the proposal and everyone was very excited, so Parliament insisted on that station in Hampton Wick. So the LSWR built it. They didn't want to, but they had to. It opened on the 1st of July 1863. Incidentally, the LSWR also added a station at Teddington to their original plan. These days, Hampton Wick is a station on the Kingston Loop, which runs from Waterloo to Wimbledon to Kingston to Twickenham and back up to Waterloo. It's not a very eventful place. There was a train crash on the bridge here in 1888, but that really is the biggest event to take place here. So that is the story of why Hampton Wick exists. Long story short, it's all about politics. I do hope you enjoyed today's video. If so, please do click the like button and consider subscribing for more. I would like, as ever, to thank my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon for your ever-generous support. You are the Kingston extension to my Hampton Wick branch. And I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.